which addresses the international struggle for reproductive justice. Tonight we have speakers from the United States, Poland, and Argentina, where the struggle for reproductive justice has been at the center of political struggles and has been very intense recently. The fact that women are not granted the same bodily autonomy, that is the recognition of our ownership of our bodies as men, unless those men are imprisoned, and as such, our ownership and control over our bodies is impinged upon regularly by the state, by our families, by our partners, and by our cultures and religious beliefs. The demand for women's bodily autonomy is fundamental. And yet, we're denied the recognition that we own and have control over our own bodies. While tonight's discussion is about the struggle over abortion rights, the struggle over reproductive justice, is part of a larger struggle addressing women's reproductive justice, which relates to not only the issue of accessing reproductive rights, but the recognition of the fact that racism, class, and disability impact on the ability of women to make reproductive choices. That due to different historical and current experiences that women have had in their lives, and historical racism, for example, also through the impact of cultures and religious beliefs, and due to their class backgrounds, that women's choices are essentially constrained. Women's low incomes, the difficulty of accessing a wide range of contraceptives, social, cultural, and religious norms impact our decision to have an abortion and to have children and when to have them. It's not merely an issue of deciding not to have children, but also that having children, when to have these children, and how many to have are also two sides of the same decisions. Women's oppression is a complicated web based upon class, racism, and disability, and as such, we do not have access to the same choices. Eugenics and racism have impacted some women, but not all. As such, we must always be aware that the issue of reproductive rights and women's choices will differ. And as such, we must always stand together in solidarity with each other and support the struggles for reproductive justice wherever they take place around the world. We need to recognize that the most inclusive form of struggle is one in which the oppressions of racism and disability and the impact of class differences are at the forefront of the struggle so that all women can benefit. Tonight's speakers are Johanna Brenner, who is a socialist feminist organizer and writer living in Portland, Oregon. She has engaged with many different reproductive justice projects over the years. Currently, she is working in a local campaign to reimagine public safety and defund policing. She is a member of Solidarity, a socialist, feminist, and anti-racist organization. Natalia Broniarczyk is the co-founder of the Abortion Dream Team and Abortion Without Borders. She's a Polish feminist activist helping women access abortions in Poland and working towards the stigmatization of abortion. She is also a researcher at the Institute of Applied Social Studies, working on the sociology and anthropology of law at the University of Warsaw. Cami Baron is an economist and feminist activist. She lives in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Cami writes for different medias about feminist economy and social reproduction. And her opinion column is in the newsletter Pagina 12 and is called The Numbers Body. Each speaker will speak for between 10 to 12 minutes each. That will give us plenty of time for discussion. What we're going to do is take 3 or 4 contributions or questions from the floor and then bring the speakers back and then repeat again. So we have more of a conversation rather than a lecture. And just to remind people, we're asking people to stay mute during this period. And if when the discussion process starts, when you're asking a question or speaking, can you turn on your camera to ensure that people who do need to read lips can actually do so? And can we also request that if you have a computerized background, to please take that down, as it unfortunately creates issues for those that have specific impairments sensitive to moving backgrounds, or you actually moving through the background. So, okay, I'm going to begin with, Johanna is going to begin her discussion on the U.S., and we would like her to start now. Thank you so much, Johanna.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here. So I was asked to speak to the question of what will happen, what's going to happen now that the Supreme Court of the U.S. has a clear conservative majority. Actually, there's some debate about this here in the States. And although the conservative majority represents a clear and present danger to women's reproductive rights, there's also thought that it is unlikely that the Supreme Court will actually overturn the Roe v. Wade decision. There's legal reasons for this, but I think the main reason is that the present mobilization of women around reproductive rights and reproductive justice will signal to the court that should they overturn this decision, there will be a kind of explosion like we saw in Argentina, for example, that will not only threaten the right, but will also delegitimize the court decision in the court. So I think the court is more likely to take a different road, which is the road of continuing to chip away at women's access to abortion through supporting various kinds of state laws. Now, you know that the United States is a weird country where we have kind of so many laws are not made at the federal level, but are allowed to be made at the state level. The one law that we have at the federal level that has limited women's access to abortion since the few years after the Roe v. Wade decision in '73 is the Hyde Amendment, which denies federal funding for women to get abortion. This, of course, as Susan so rightly pointed out, so much of abortion politics is about class and race, disability, poverty, and marginalization, because most of the reason that so many of these kinds of limitations that are being placed in this one at the federal level predominantly affects women who are politically powerless and marginalized. And that is why they stand. That is why it has been difficult to overturn the Hyde Amendment. More recently, however, and this is again what gives me some hope, is the feminist movement in the States has been changed in important ways and affected by the rise of feminists of color organizing around what's called reproductive justice. And those movements have done, as Susan said, is to connect abortion to a much broader agenda of reproductive justice that includes the right to have children, the right to parent if you're a single mother, the right to parent if you're lesbian or gay, and so forth. So this idea of reproductive justice has gained strength. And I think that, however, it is still not a majoritarian movement, but I believe should there be a huge growth in feminist organizing, were Roe v. Wade overturned, that politics would have some purchase on, and I would have hope for overturning Hyde. Most of the limitations on abortion in the United States, as I said, have been passed at the state level. And the states are a mixed bag because there are some states, particularly states in the West, that have expanded women's access to abortion. They have, for example, in my state, Oregon, California, Washington, State Medicaid, which is the medical insurance and medical provision for poor women, pays for women to have their abortion if they're on that program. So in some states have passed laws projecting that should Roe v. be overturned, that in that state, women's access to abortion is guaranteed. So in other states, particularly in the South, but also in some of the Southwest, like Texas and Arizona, there have been state legislatures have been very, very active in passing laws that substantially burden women's access. Now the court, and here's where the new court will come into play, because up until now, with the liberals on the court, and the court mix politically, the court has ruled since a ruling in 1994 that laws cannot place what they call an undue burden on access to abortion. That is to say, if you have a right, which is in this case the right to privacy, the right to access an abortion, no state can pass a law that makes it impossible for you to exercise that right. However, the question then becomes, what is an undue burden? And as the court becomes more conservative, I think many people feel that up until now, some of the rulings of the court, which have, for example, overturned laws that would substantially close all of the clinics in a state, have said that, well, no, that's an undue burden. So you can't do that. And there's all kinds of arguments, which I won't go into, but I think what's really important too about the politics here is that most of these state laws are passed on the grounds that they are protecting women. You know, like informed consent. Women should have informed consent. That means that there should be a waiting period between when they request an abortion and when they actually get it. Who does that hurt? It hurts women who have trouble getting to an abortion clinic, right? So it means poor women. It means women who live in rural areas. Women who live in a city where there's a law are fine. So the same thing with other kinds of laws, parental consent laws, which affect primarily women who are under 18, also put burdens on younger people. So I think that what I'm trying to get to here is to say that these state laws have, when they've been upheld by the court, have burdened access, have primarily hurt particular categories of women who are the least powerful, and therefore they've stood. The other thing is that some people feel like, well, if the court were to overturn Roe, then the states would begin enacting these fetal personhood laws. Now, fetal personhood speaks to the issue that was central to the court in Roe v. Wade. And I think it was true in Argentina too, where I think it's 22 weeks. In other words, there's always a sense of there's a process of fetal development, and there's this issue of viability. Could a fetus exist outside the womb without special protections, or could it even live? So the viability issue has been used to speak to things like when trying to push back when you can get an abortion. There's also fetal personhood. But the thing about fetal personhood and these much more draconian laws about abortion that have been passed in conservative states, in my view, reflect the existence of Roe. Because with Roe, conservative Republicans can do things for their evangelical right-wing base, feed that base, and know that those are never going to actually be enacted, so they don't have to face the rage that would happen if these things were denied to the vast majority of women. So I actually, as I say, I know this is a little controversial, but I actually would look forward in some ways as a feminist to the overturn of Roe, because I really believe that we would be able to expand our movement. Nonetheless, I don't want that to happen. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad that Roe is there in many ways, because it's not clear that we would necessarily be able to do that. I also want to speak to broader reproductive justice issues. Again, I think for many people in this country, many women, the issue of abortion is one where we have maintained some access, but we have other struggles that have to do with with austerity, with the conservative, with neoliberal capitalism, that have broadly affected women's ability to have freedom of our reproductive lives. And these are places where the movement is going to continue to struggle and build. So I'll end with that.
Thank you so very much, Johanna. Excuse me. Thank you so much. The next person who's coming to speak is going to be Natalia. I'm going to unmute you, or Terry's going to unmute you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much.
First of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy that I can join this discussion. So yes, I would like to say some words about Polish situation and Poland, Polish access to abortion. Probably some of you know that Poland has the most restrictive laws on abortion in Europe, except for Malta. We can legally have abortion in Poland only in 3 cases. In case of rape or incest, in case of severe fetal abnormalities, or in case of the woman's life is at risk. About the severe fetal abnormalities, probably you also heard that in October, situation has changed a little bit, but it's still not clear. Is it possible to have an abortion in this case or no? Because the law has changed, but it's not. It was not published. So, you know, like still doctors don't know what to do in this case. But this is only in theory, because in practice, it was very difficult to have an abortion even in these 3 cases because of something called conscientious objection. The situation when doctor has a right to say no to provide an abortion because of his beliefs. And this is something that it's not also very clear in Poland. You can have your conscientious objection at public hospital, but you are free from it if you have, you know, a private gynecological office. So it's very popular in Poland to use this tool to say no to women at public hospital. And of course, everyone knows that ban of abortion does not mean that abortion is not happening, but it means that abortion is expensive, that abortion is stigmatized, that abortion is something that we should be ashamed, and that this is something that we should, you know, keep it in secret. And access to abortion is something guaranteed only for some people with money, with good luck, with access to comprehensive information, with a good network of feminist activists, for example. And the situation in Poland is mainly difficult because many people probably don't know, or maybe you know, but in Poland the law has changed in the beginning of the 90s, straight after the political transformation. And before the 93, we had really quite good access to abortion. And in some way, abortion was, and it's still for many people, it's connected to some bad Soviet souvenir. And that's why it's very hard for many people to change their way of thinking about abortion, because abortion is something, you know, like really connected to this old bad times when we didn't be, you know, independent country. But the huge role of these changes at the beginning of 90s has, of course, Catholic Church, who is still a very powerful institution in Poland. And even during the leftist government, it was difficult to change this anti-abortion law. For many years, there have been attempts to further restrict this anti-abortion law. Mostly it was done, of course, by the anti-abortion organizations. And right now they are very powerful, because our government right now is closely cooperating with this kind of NGOs. And that's why we have this proposals of total ban of abortion. The first one was in 2016, and then society reacted with this Black Monday, and right now we have this situation from October, when the Constitutional Court decided that the possibility to terminate a pregnancy in case of serious fetal abnormalities is unconstitutional. And I agree with Johanna that sometimes bad political decisions create a possibility for society. And this is the way that we work. Like, we decided to use this bad political decisions to educate people and to show people that abortion is happening every day. And abortion is something really connected to our normal life. Because before 2016, and it was also my situation, many people, even in feminist movement, believe that abortion is something only political and moral debate. And I see your hand. try to focus on the time. But I remember when I was pregnant, and I was feminist activist, and I was really connected to this feminist NGOs, and I still didn't knew what to do with my pregnancy. And I was working on really bad workplace with no contract, with no social security, and I didn't have money to go to Germany, Netherlands, or to UK to, you know, have an abortion. And I found the help not in feminist movement, but I found help in internet. I was so ashamed to ask my feminist friends for help because of the stigma, that I was looking for help in the internet. And right now I'm working with a woman who helped me a couple years ago. She told me what to do, how I should order pills. She told me, you know, everything. around abortion, and I was surprised that this is like a special bond between people who need abortion and who didn't see each other in a real life, but they know that they have to help each other in this special situation. And now we are working together since 4 years. We created Abortion Dream Team. The name is, of course, for many people very controversial, but we decided that we want to create this atmosphere of controversy because we need to have the new beginning of the debate. We need to have the fresh start, because reality of abortion is something totally different than political debate or even media debate. And we have to like create this, I'm sorry for bad words, but this media shitstorm, to be honest, to have an attention of the media. And we want to talk about abortion reality, that abortion is expensive, that abortion is connected to your work situation, that if you don't have a contract in your work, which is very, very popular right now in Poland to, you know, to I don't know, like engage people in some 1 week contract or 2 week contract with no like social security. If you are in this situation, you have no access to safe abortion because you have to have money, you have to have someone who will stay with your kids if you have kids, you have to take 1 day off to go abroad, and you have to say something to your family why you are going and why do you need to go to other country. And we decided to talk about that because we believe that this is only one way to make us closer to changes. And 1 year ago, we created also Abortion Without Borders with 5 other organizations from Germany, from Netherlands, from UK, to also finance abortion in second time for people who don't have money to do it here in Poland. And we can do it because of the international solidarity between countries. And we know that many people before 93 came to Poland to have abortion here. And right now we are going to France, we are going to Netherlands, we are going to Sweden, to UK, and this is the way it works. But this is only solution for resistance, I think. We should have good healthcare, and when I'm saying healthcare, I also mean free abortion without stigma, without conscientious objection here in Poland. But till we don't have it, we need to have friends from other countries. And yeah, this is the situation here in Poland. Thank you for
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you. Cami, are you ready? We have to unmute you. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I would like also to thank you very much for the invitation and the possibility to share experiences and with all of you. It's really a pleasure to meet you. Well, as you all probably know, it's a very special moment for feminist struggle in Argentina because we come from a huge victory. This time, 2 years after abortion bill was denied by the Senate, finally we won the law. So this time the Senate voted positive, while in 2018 we lost for 38 negative votes versus 31 positive votes. In 2020, we won for 38 positive and 29 negative. So almost the same difference, but the other way around. This means that after that defeat, we continue struggling until we got it. So free, legal, and safe abortion till the 14th week. We still have for more than 14 weeks under certain circumstances. Well, a little bit of history, so where we come from. In Argentina, fight for legal abortion has more than 30 years. For the last 10 years, almost, the most important actions were held by the National Campaign for the Right to Safe and Free Abortion, which is a very, very large political articulation, federal one. The campaign was the one that presented bills at the Congress every year since 2006. Well, the green handkerchief that is all over the world and many of you have come from here, from the campaign. Since 2012, from a court ruling, I don't know if you call it like this, the court, the Supreme Court, we have abortion for certain circumstances, like Natalia told us in Poland. So this means that in some parts of the country, such as Buenos Aires City, the public health service guarantee free and safe abortion for many years, no? Since this time. But this is far from being the rule. Like in the rest of the country, especially in the north, fundamentalist movements for big power, and there are less health workers that guarantee the practice at the public service. So, well, it happens all the time, even though we have this legal access under single circumstances, that a lot of girls and women and other identities were criminalized inside the public hospitals, for example. No? We have thousands of women prosecuted by the justice. So girls, women came to the public hospital with an abortion in progress sometimes, and doctors called the police. And this still happened till last month. We hope this will stop now. So during all these years, it was very important, the role of feminist collectives such as Pink Relief, who have been working throughout the country to provide information on how to perform safe abortions with medicines. We talk about Socorristas en Red, for example, that Natalia also mentioned before in our previous chat, very important network that guarantee access and information during this time. So also the network of health professionals for the right to decide is coordinating workers inside the public health system through the last years, and it's now very important also to guarantee the law in the next years. So till now, every year we had women in jail and women who died because of unsafe abortions in Argentina. They were always poor women, of course. No? Middle and upper class women could get access to safe paid abortions. And this was always a very important part of the discussion. No? Middle and upper class people could hold it, but not the poor ones, who are the ones who die. So as there is a very deep inequality in Argentina, we see that with abortion is a reflect of what happens with many other problems. This inequality is in the center of the situation. You know? And this was a shared argument. Abortion was always treated as a class matter in Argentina. And this long history of huge networks and fight for legal abortion ran into the explosion of a massive movement. You probably know also that in 2015, in Argentina, we have these huge concentrations with the slogan "Ni una menos." This was a great moment of huge mobilization and politicization of feminist movement. Well, in 2017, we had our first feminist strike. In 2018, 2 million people assisted to the Congress when the abortion law was for the first time debate. And it was a massive politicization moment, as I said, especially for young feminists. Just to give an example, all the reference from high school activists were women on those years. So abortion was debated everywhere, like everybody talked about it in the television, in the newspapers, at schools, hospitals, workplace, everywhere. So we say we had took abortion out of the closet in 2019 and with all this history. And so that's why, even though in 2018 the Senate refused the law, we suspected to have won the discussion within the society. It's still a very religious society, but we won the discussion clearly. I think this. So all these years of feminist wave coincided with a right-wing neoliberal government with some pinkwashing attempts, like, for example, permitieron, they let the Congress debate the law, but well, we lost there, no? So during these years, between 2019 and 2019, the feminist movement was one of the strongest movements, against the government, who finally lost the election. So we fight against austerity, against neoliberal politics within a feminist approach during this time. I don't have too much time, so I will go to some what we expect to happen on now on. Then we can talk about like the difference between the debate between 2 years of 2019 and 2020, because some things have changed, and it's perhaps it's different to think about this. But just to go to some conclusions or what we expect to happen from now on. Well, of course, we expect not to have any more death women because of unsafe abortion. So we need to immediately free women who are in jail and judicialize process. Then, as I said, there are more than 1,000 right now. Well, until last year, 13% of the births were held by teenagers in Argentina. So in some parts of the country, it grows to 20%. It's very high. And even the very young girls from 10 to 13 years were obliged to give birth like till December. We need to stop right now. And the law, of course, it's going to help us for this. So we need this reality to stop. We say, niñas, no madres. It's also a slogan that we use, like girls, no mothers, not mothers, to illustrate how insane it is, this reality. So we expect a reduction on the disparity within the country. Nowadays, we have a very different reality. I told you in Buenos Aires and in other parts of the country. In terms of access to the public health system, we have a huge precariousness, working class. More than 30% of the people don't have access to private health, and they only use the public service. So we need to strengthen the public service. We should expect also a reaction from the fundamentalist sectors after this victory, of course. So we know we have to defend the right to abortion and make the law rules. So they will try to scare the doctors, they will try to scare the health workers, and they will try to continue criminalizing women. So all the networks we have built, we should strengthen to defend the law. Something also very nice, I think, to think about these days is the fight for abortion gives us a new and different way of doing politics. And we learn too much about the struggle, and we continue learning from the streets to alliances in the Congress, journalists, actresses, health workers, poets. Like, we organize ourselves in many places, and we get in touch to also use abortion to speak about many other rights we need to win. It was also very clear this year that the protagonist was the grassroots movement in Argentina. We fight and we fight on the streets, in the streets, all together with a mass movement, and this was the one important thing that make people and society change their mind. So, well, we also need to strengthen the Latin American network, of course, to have abortion in every country. As we sing, América Latina va a ser toda feminista. In Spanish, that means Latin America will be all feminist. Well, we need to guarantee also what we call integral sexual education, like at schools. It's very important for the new generations to support these rights. And well, especially in this pandemic moment, we need to push a discussion about health and the decommodification of health service. There is already the discussion about the public production of the medicine we use for pharmacological abortions here in Argentina, and I think this is quite important. Public production and distribution of the medicine. We really need to think about this. We are assisting, I think, a maximum level of system cruelty. The possibility of getting vaccinated for COVID is subject to the purchasing power of each country, as it was abortion in Argentina till last December. So we can make this connection, and well, we don't want lives that matter more than others. So we need to change this, and well, I think this should help us to continue building a movement who fights to change social reproduction issues, and who cares about social inequality within our country, within the continent, and within the whole world. So I'm happy to say this and to have good feelings for what we are building, even though these difficult moments.
Thank you so much, Cami. Okay, we're going to start I have to change my view because I've been watching. We're going to start the discussion period now. I want to thank all three sisters of Johanna, Cami, and Natalia. It's just been a wonderful time to hear what you're saying, to raise the struggle across countries, to build solidarity together. And I just want to thank them all for coming. Does anybody like to say anything or ask a question? I'm going to take 3 people to start. If you can do it, you can go to your participants. There'll be a raise hand option underneath that, and whereupon you can raise your hands. If you don't have that for some reason, go like this and I'll see you. Right. Ali?
Hi, yeah, thank you for all three speakers. I thought that was really, really brilliant. And yeah, I've learned so much, so thank you. Just to kind of Camilla and also Gabriella, I see is on the call, just thank you for making some good news in 2020. You know, your actions have been felt across the world. So, you know, we see you and thank you for coming to tell us a little bit more about that struggle. And you mentioned kind of the young feminists that you brought into the movement, and I just kind of wanted to ask, you know, how are you kind of continuing engaging with the youth, and what are their kind of demands for what's next? Because you mentioned, you know, kind of bringing a kind of production of medications, you know, in-house and kind of that being produced publicly, but is there any other kind of demands that are coming out from the movement? I'd be really interested to hear more about that. And also, I'd like to say to Natalia, what a powerful intervention that was. I think it's really important that we, you know, remember this is personal. And so going from, you know, the personal to the international was a really, really powerful intervention. And I'd really like to hear more about abortions across borders and, you know, how we can kind of get involved, because I'm going to hold my hands up. That's the first time I've heard of that organisation, and I'd love to hear how you organise that from, you know, from the grassroots up. So, but thank you to all the speakers. That's amazing contributions, and I feel quite emotional. So thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Would anyone else like to say anything? Sandra, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, the women's right to choose to have an abortion. Yeah, you know, I'm into women's right to choose. But as a disabled woman, I've also seen the other side of the coin, where actually to, you know, have children has been something which has been denied us, an enforced sterilisation. And, you know, if we have got pregnant, often it's been about us having abortions and actually, you know, not being denied that mothering opportunity. So I think, you know, within this movement, we need to think of it from that perspective too. So there's a right to choose, obviously, not to have a child and go through with that, you know, but there is also the right to choose to have a child and be a mother. And I think, you know, often we don't perhaps are able to put the two together and think of it in the feminist movement. And I think that's something that we might need to look at and understand a little bit more about.
Completely agree, Sandra. Thank you for that. Would anyone else like to speak? If you have a hand. Anyone else? Yes, Roland.
Yes, further to what Sandra said, I think there's also a worrying eugenicist thing of pressure to abort children who may have what is conceived as disabilities or may be a burden on society. I think that there's a real problem. I mean, we've also seen, I think there was sometime when there was the one-child policy in China as well, pressure to abort female children. And I think that we have to be very, very careful of not giving in to these eugenicist demands of saying one child's life, one fetus is more valuable than another, one child's life is more valuable than another. And I just think it's very concerning that there's almost a suggestion you go and have an amniocentesis test, see if this child is going to be fit and healthy and worthy of living, and if not, then we can do something about it for you. And of course, every woman has the right to bear or not to bear the child that she's carrying, but there is also, I think, strong social pressure to get rid of unwanted or potentially burdensome children.
Yeah. All right. Terry, would you like to say something? And I'm going to return the discussion back to Johanna, Cami, and Natalia, and let them respond.
Shall I start?
Yes, please.
Just to say something about the young movement that you were asking. I think, but we have many ways of getting in touch. In Argentina, we have a very important moment that is the Encuentro Nacional de Mujeres, Lesbianas, Travestis, Trans. That it's a huge gathering that happens once a year since more than 30 years ago. So this year has been growing, and we move. It's every year is in a different part of the country, and so collectives, organization, parties, all the activism moves to that city for 3 days to have discussions about what the movement is thinking about. So this has been a very important way of politicizing new generations, that they come to this place to gather around and to think. So this is one of the ways that I think that the feminist movement has grown and has also maintained this young feeling. And well, these meetings are growing every year. Like since 2015, 2014, they became massive gatherings, and so this is very important. About the new demands, or what are we looking forward to do as a movement for what's coming? I think we are this year, especially in the pandemic moment, that we lost this physical gathering spaces, that we couldn't be with each other together. We couldn't gather in the streets. It's at least for the most of the year. We just went out for the Congress treatment, but we were in our houses. The fight for the social care and the distribution of social care has been very, very active, and of course this is always atravesado, like it's always together with the high inequality we have as a country. So poor people couldn't stay at their houses to refugee for the pandemic. So we are talking about how to remunerate, how to pay for social care, and that is already happening in the neighborhoods and in the activism, in the social organizations that support the life, like everyday life for the people in the community. So I think this is our next discussion, and it's a discussion that's, of course, about inequality, and inequality always read with a feminist and an intersectional, of course, approximation. So I think I hope that we are going to push forward this debate. And there is also, for the first time in Argentina, we have a Ministry of Women and Gender and Diversity. It's a new ministry that comes with the change of the government change, and they are working, I think, they are doing a good work. Of course, we have to always be aware of the possible of institutionalization of the grassroots movement once you have these conquers, but they are working on a law of social care. We hope to debate and to open that debate for the massive movement. So that's it.
Thank you, Cami. Johanna, Natalia, would you like to say something? Please, you have to, okay, there you go.
Okay, so not me or Joanna?
No, you go ahead, love.
So I would like to say something also about this engaging young people. I think that it's much easier to engage young people if you have so much oppressive government as Poland, because for us right now, we can see that many young people are pissed off not only because of the abortion, but because of the anti-LGBT politics, because of the because of the racist politic, and like people are afraid that, you know, they are young and they live in a country with so much oppression on so many levels, and for them it's easier right now to understand that abortion is something important, because they also are on the streets because of the police brutality, which is right now a huge problem in Poland. So this solidarity is making on the street between the very different movements, and they are pissed off maybe from different reasons, but we are together on the streets and we are fighting, you know, for many things. Also for them, I think, because many feminist activists are right now much older than these people who are right now on the streets, and they are, you know, kept in the police cars for nothing. But we also use social media to engage young people, and I know that this is in some way frustrating, but you have to be visible in social media if you want to engage young people, because their lives is there. And it's also good to show them that abortion is not something dramatic and bad, but it also can be something maybe not nice, but something very needed. And for young people, it's interesting that everything that they heard in schools about abortion is a lie, and there is a, you know, something like it's other reality in this topic. About Abortion Without Borders, this is a group, informal group, was set on December 11, 2019, and it was possible for us to create this group because we were working together before 2019, but straight after Irish abortion referendum, Mara Clark, founder of Abortion Support Network from UK, reached us and asked us about this possibility to create some group who will be able to help people from Poland to access abortion in second time in UK. And we, of course, thought that this is the brilliant idea. It was something very needed. And we were working together with feminist group from Germany and from the Netherlands. And that's why we created this, you know, like broader initiative. Money goes from UK because Abortion Support Network is a charity organization. In Poland, it's illegal to collect money for abortion because it might be considered as a crime. If you want to join to Abortion Without Borders, it will be like very good to have as many organizations as it possible, but you have to reach Abortion Support Network because they coordinate our work. We have a phone number in Poland and we are receiving calls from people who are in need and they need to have access to abortion. And we work together to send women to Germany or to Netherlands or to United Kingdom for safe abortion. And if someone is in early pregnancy, we are assisting during medical abortion at home. When we created Abortion Without Borders in December 2019, nobody thought that pandemic will happen. So it was very difficult for us to work since March this year because of the lack of flights, because of the lockdown. But 4 weeks ago, we published our 1-year report, and I can say that even in this difficult situation, we were able to help almost 6,000 people in Poland to access abortion. And every day we have at least 9 people who are taking pills at home. And we helped 262 people go abroad for second-time abortion. And many of them, in theory, had a right to abortion in Poland, to legal abortion in Poland, but they didn't have access because of this conscientious objection of stigma, or because of stigma. So we try to, fill a gap of system. And I want to say one more thing about this disability rights and abortion rights, because this is something that is very important for me, because my brother is a person with disability, and many of my friends are activists of disability rights. And in Poland, this discussion about disability rights and abortion is very popular. I think that we have to remember that also people with disability need to have access to abortion. And if we ask people with disability about their afraid or opinions about right to abortion, we can be surprised, because many of them really believe that they are being used in this discussion as the tokens. And we have to remember that this is not solidarity. We have to remember that we should always put in the middle of the discussion person who is able to get pregnant. And it can be women, it can be person with disability, it can be minor, it can be, everyone who is able to get pregnant. And always leave this decision to this person and create politics to make this choice possible. And the same with the right to have kids. Many people in Poland with disability have no right to have kids, because people don't believe that they are able to be responsible enough to take care of children. And this is what I understand as a reproductive solidarity. This is something I believe is needed in this discussion, that we always have to remember that people with disability are not subject. They are not objects in that. Like, they should be always treated as the same person as other people.
I would like to.
Thank you, Natalia. Johanna, would you like to speak?
Oh.
You okay?
I think Cami had a follow-up. Why doesn't she go and then I'll go?
Well,
okay. Just a little thing about this. Okay, well, we continue and then we go back.
Okay. Because I'd like to see if other people want to speak. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
What worried me is the attempt to create division amongst people who women should have choices to do whatever they want. And it's our decision to have, to not have, and when to have it. And I think somebody threw a red herring into the pot here. Which makes me really annoyed.
Actually, I guess I would answer that a bit differently.
Yes, go ahead.
Because I think one of the things about the reproductive justice framework is to point us to the broader conditions under which these choices are being made. And that's extremely important, I think, for us. I will say that, as in Poland, here the right wing has used disability. They've also used eugenics. I think Roland was mentioning that, the history of sterilization of women of color as well as disabled women. So pretending to be on the side of the oppressed. So how do we address that? I think just to leave it at the question of choice is not sufficient, because I think the question of what does it mean to have a disabled child in capitalism, in a system where you're left on your own, the family is predominantly responsible for care. That means that it so completely shapes how people make this choice. So I don't think we have to say that it's not women's choice. Of course it is, but we want to follow up, I think, with pointing out the way that capitalism in general and neoliberal austerity in particular has made these choices not really choices, because, even having a normal child reshapes your life in so many ways, and often in ways that you would not choose to have it shaped, like the things that you can't do and the ways in which your responsibility for that child is, and then if you're thinking about, race and what it means to bring a child of color into this particular white supremacist world. So, I think we need to make this alliance with disability rights that says that we are one of the champions. And I think this is what Cami was saying as well as Natalia. We as feminists need to be the champions of disabled people. And I think that, making that alliance will help us to combat this false and actually exploitive and terrible way that the right wing is using what is a heart-wrenching, heartbreaking, important, aspect of our humanity, that we're all not physically, mentally perfect. And so what are the consequences of that?
Thank you so much, Johanna.